Hello and welcome to this post-Easter edition of Talk of the Trinity podcast. I am Baz Barrett. With me is Mr. Trinity himself, Will Forrest. And you may have spent Easter Sunday and the days after gorging on chocolate and other such treats, because I'm pretty sure that's what was in the Bible in terms of what the real meaning of Easter is. But Villa fans, no doubt you have not finished feasting on the league table. Your eyes are still with that visual treat of sixth place in the Premier League table after our previous game, which
What
is
the
a high,
fuck?
which is the highest Villa have been since round about Easter Sunday. I think it certainly feels like that anyway. But places that you do not have to wait that long to be constantly updated for your visual pleasure are the Twitter page at Talk Trinity, whereby we are keeping you up to date with all of the latest Villa news, views, previews, reviews, comments. Everything you need to know is on there. If you want to check out previous episodes, then if you're more of an audio person, then you can go to our audio providers, Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google. We're on Fan Hub. But if you like a visual treat and you'd like a bit of potluck as to whether you will get the full visual or you could say the full frontal, but I think my lawyers have advised me not to describe seeing me and Will in person as that. And we've got some guest stars of yesteryear through our previous episode, so you can check that out as well. And speaking
Happy
of,
birthday, Connor Sherry.
yep, happy birthday to you, Connor. Hope you, well, if you're listening to it today, our IT system is very quick. If you are, because we would have uploaded it quick, but if you're listening to it back after your birthday, hope you had a good day. And speaking of friends of the show, big shout out to Mr. Cayman Islands Villa himself, Russell Homer. Managed to catch up with him last weekend for a couple of beverages, which I can confirm all remained in the glass and then all went straight into my mouth. Again, sounds dodgy, but that is where beer goes out of the glass. Were we
Parental
celebrating?
advisory.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of 18 plus, not 18 plus beers though. There was not time for that, but we were celebrating when we were having our beverages that we were not spilling. Events of Villa Park last Saturday at 3 p.m. when Aston Villa beat Nottingham Forest 2-0. And firstly, because I don't get to say this very often, prediction was absolutely perfect in terms of 0-0 half time, 2-0 full time, late goal. So if you have followed all of my predictions throughout the time we've been doing Talk of the Trinity, you are now only £10,000 in debt as opposed to 10,010. So we're on the way up. Things are going well. But in terms of the game itself, I was at Villa Park in the Doug Ellis stand watching the events unfold before me. And my view of the game would be summed up by it's a sign of a good team to win whilst not playing very well. What about you, Will? Have you got a more optimistic outlook not having to watch the 90 minutes live in person?
Your view of the game was shitter than if you'd have been sat in the Trinity, you traitor. This isn't dealing out the dog. This is talking the Trinity.
To be
Anyway,
fair, that's how we funded the new North Stand, isn't it? Dealing out the duck.
I didn't get to watch the game. Obviously, I was trying to keep up to date with it, right? So I went to watch Cadbury's instead, and they were crap. Love you, Cadbury's.
Did they win?
No, they lost 1-0. So
Okay,
that's some lower team.
Okay, so sign not a very good team then.
So I mean, Cadbury's are great. They're right at the top of the league, but this other team weren't great. So I got the notifications on my phone, and it got to about half past, and I thought nothing has come through yet. Like I've had the team, nothing has come through. Got a phone out, just nothing. I thought I left it on silent, put it away. Buzz, brilliant. Yes, this is a goal. No, it was like a substitution. It's like, well, I don't give a shit about a substitution, really. So contact me when there's something interesting to talk about. Fortunately, it appears that there was something interesting to talk about because Bertie banged in another,
Yep.
after half time. It seemed from my point of view, and you'll be able to confirm or deny, ridicule or be amazed by my brilliant perception, that we didn't get out of second gear at all, that Bertie did what he needed to do when we got the goal, which was fortuitous because of the pass to him.
Yep.
And then at the very end, it was an incredible piece of awareness from Ollie Watkins, great composure to play the 1-2 with Ramsey and then dink the ball over Kane and Abbas at the end. But it looked like Forest didn't trouble us at all. They had that one long range shot that Martinez saved. I think I had Mings as my vice captain in the fantasy league, so that was all right, because we didn't let a goal in. It seemed like it seemed as though we were always going to win if we wanted to win the game, rather than, oh damn it, this is a close one. We've been lucky to win 2-0.
Yeah, I mean, I think overall, even though the opening goal was fortuitous, you could say, I wouldn't say it'd been comfortable, but as you said, it wasn't a game from a Villa perspective thinking, oh God, Forest are absolutely battering us here and a lucky goal on the break. I mean, Forest they grew into the game during the first half when maybe the expected barrage didn't materialise from Villa, but it wasn't to use a boxing analogy, Villa were kind of winning on points, comfortably holding Forest off, but not really looking like they were going for the kill and knockout blow, which, in terms of stylistically, we talked about before the game. It's never going to be 100-mile-an-hour attacking play. And the goal came just at the right time. And as you say, it was pretty much in a flash. Poor pass across the box, Bertie, bang, in. Game over. Pretty much. I mean, in terms of, there was still 40 minutes to go in Forest. They did have a go as best as they could, but there was never really much of a sense of danger. But unsurprisingly, we mentioned it in the build-up, 5 goals away from home, worst away record in the league. Yeah, they played like a team. They were game. They were valiant, they tried hard, they weren't terrible. They're probably not they're not the worst team I've seen this season, but yeah,
they Villa under Gerrard, wouldn't you?
well, yeah, exactly. But they look like a team, as you'd expect under Steve Cooper, well organised, but yeah, lacking that killer instinct really. And yeah, the second goal put the cherry on the top of the result for Villa, if not necessarily the performance. Because it wasn't, a 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 all round for many players. I mean, I thought it was Ramsey, you mentioned, played the assist for the second goal, but wasn't really his game. Wasn't really set up for his game. I mean, we've stylistically talked about away from home Villa perhaps being more set up to play on the counter, which I think suits Ramsey more, rather than when we're playing a slower possession-based game. It wasn't quite coming off for him. Doug Luiz didn't have a great game, I didn't think. Not terrible, but it was 6s really across the board, mostly. I mean, it's nice to see Traore back amongst the goals. It meant a lot to him in terms of why he was scoring the goals, why he was on the field. Leon Bailey went off injured. Looks like he's going to be out for a little while. So we'll come on to the Newcastle preview in a bit, but there's the opportunity there for Traore to get a run in the team now. But yeah, I'd say that the most positive in terms of performances was Moreno, left back, in terms of pretty much that left flank was his own. Very assured attacking display. Could have had a couple of assists on a day where we had our shooting boots on a bit more, but he does not look like he's going to be ceding his place to Luca Digne anytime soon. Injuries permitting. And funnily enough, I think in terms of in the summer, Forest were linked to Moreno from what I can remember. I think Moreno was one of the 6 players in Europe who Forest didn't actually sign in the summer. So we managed to get him in January. But I think in terms of the Forest game, say take the points, move on. You look at the table after the game, so oh, that looks nice in terms of 6. You look at the injury list and go, that doesn't look so nice.
That's not so 60.
No, it's definitely not. But we did what we needed to do. But speaking of something that does seem a bit more sexy, is the Saturday lunchtime game at Villa Park.
Your mind is in the gutter. I said 60. You dirtbag.
Well, I'm sure that's just a certain genre. There, 60 sexy, but it is a performance potentially where no holds barred. Hopefully X-rated for our visitors. Newcastle United, and I've just realised it was not planned, but yeah, kind of similar. We're wearing the colours. If you're watching on our YouTube channel or listening in and trying to imagine me it's kind of grey and black, not black and white.
Nobody's
Actually,
trying to imagine you with anything. You need to stop this.
well, no, well, I think you'd want to imagine me in something because the opposite is imagining me with nothing, and nobody wants to do that. But what we do want to do is talk about Newcastle United because it's fair to say there is a little bit of history between Villa and Newcastle, summed up probably in a sentence by they really, really don't like us, which we find hilarious, and that winds them up even more. And especially in terms of you look at the record, the head-to-head record between Villa and Newcastle in the Premier League. Fair to say Newcastle have the better end of it, and Villa have been at the end of quite a few pastings in Premier League history. But the most important stats, number of times Newcastle have been relegated by Villa, 2. Number of times Villa have been relegated by Newcastle, 0. So is that a score prediction? We'll find that out a little later on. But what are your thoughts on Newcastle, Will? I think the proposition of playing Newcastle on Saturday compared to perhaps a few weeks ago, I think it's changed a little, would be my view.
Yeah, it's changed quite a bit over the last couple of years, hasn't it? I can remember Bertie scoring that banger in the 2-0 victory where Harahan scored against them in lockdown. And you look ahead now to the squads that both teams have got and the players that they've brought in, the managers that they've brought in as well. And it's a hell of a lot different to what it was before. It's a big game, and it's the type of game that should be a big Premier League game, really. Fair play to Newcastle. I said it on the Premier League predictions review. Go and listen to that if you haven't already. I did the other day again, still laughing, 4th place. Anyway,
gonna happen.
But I think I said at the time that Newcastle have done really well, and they've spent quite a bit of money quietly. They haven't really, really gone out like a Chelsea have done. I think you might have disagreed a little bit with that. But Newcastle, you look at the players that they've got, and they play an exciting brand of football. They go for the wins under Eddie Howe, which is what he was famous for at Bournemouth as well, and had a good time there, apart from the relegation in the very end. But overall, he did very well for him. You look at this game and you think, well, hang on, in the running, this is probably one of the most tantalising games that are left this season. It's up there with the likes of Man City versus Arsenal, in my opinion, because of everything that's on the line. And as you rightly said, 6 weeks ago, who'd have thought that this would be a game that could see us really get a stranglehold on potentially getting into Europe, whether that's the Conference League or whether it's the Europa League, or as some fans are dreaming, the Champions League. I mean, don't personally see us getting into the Champions League. I don't personally see us getting into the Europa League either. But Newcastle have certainly got a very good chance of doing so. You know, they only in October, November, people were saying that they'll probably be Manchester City's biggest rivals come the end of the season for the Premier League, but they tailed away. I think from a Newcastle point of view, as good as they have done, and as well as players like Guimaraes and Joe Linton and Almiron, you know, some of those, the latter two were bog standard last year until Howe rejuvenated them. It's an exciting game, and they've done very well, but they draw too many. They draw far too many games. I think they've probably got the most draws in the Premier League. They don't lose often. They don't concede too many goals. Nick Pope has been a fantastic bargain buy, really. So we're going to have our work cut out at the weekend, but there's no reason with the upward trajectory that we're currently on and the way that we're playing under Emery that we can't get something out of this game, whether that's all free or a share. I do know. But I'm not going to say just yet because it's not different time.
No. Well, I'm going to throw in a few Newcastle stats for you in terms of their recent performance and performance over the course of the season.
How many times have they sobbed on the Tyne? Two.
Two this afternoon. But in terms of, you mentioned kind of their attacking prowess, but it's their defence which I think has really set the tone for them this season, because they have the best defence by terms of goals conceded in the Premier League this season. Only 21 goals conceded, which is, for comparative purposes, Man City have conceded 27 and Arsenal have conceded 29. And those are the second and third in the list. In terms of goals scored, 48, which for comparative purposes is more than Man United, less than Spurs, less than Brighton, less than Liverpool, and only one more than Brentford. And yeah, about nearly 30 less than Man City. But in terms of, it's their defensive play, and it's been a topsy-turvy season for them. Because you mentioned in terms of draws, certainly a lot of them, especially in the first half of the season. But they in the league, they're currently on a 5-match winning streak. Going back to middle of March, 2-1 against Wolves, 2-1 against Forest, 2-0 against United, 5-1 away at West Ham, and 2-1 away at Brentford. So some good results. That came off a 5-match streak where they didn't win any and lost 3 and drawn 2. Roundabout, you could say maybe the build up to the League Cup final was potentially playing some havoc with their results there, but they have picked it up in the last month or so. And in terms of Villa as well, they have won 4 and drawn 1 of the last 5. So in the last 10 games between these two teams, 9 wins and a draw. So very much a meeting, as you said, between form teams in the Premier League. And yeah, it should be a good game. I mean, in terms of hopefully for us, never mind the neutral. But for Villa, turning into it from a Villa perspective, we said enough about Newcastle. Injuries are mounting up, as we touched upon earlier. It looks like Bailey's going to be out. Kamara probably out. Cash out. Coutinho out. So in your mind, does the team largely pick itself in terms of same team that started against Forest, except you bring Traore in? Or is there something a bit different that you think we may be rolling out for our Geordie guests?
I think in terms of momentum and in terms of the way in which players have been playing recently and the confidence that they've got, you've got to go with the same team as much as possible. And with Bertie coming on and having the impact that he has done in the last 2 games, regardless of Bailey's injury, he'd probably be getting a look in to start anyway. So I'd definitely start him. And then you've got whichever formation Unai Emery decides to go with. I think the only thing we know is he's got 4 at the back and Dougie Luiz is in midfield. You know, you don't know whether he's playing a 4-2-3-1, a 4-4-2, a 4-2-2-2, or 10, you know, and whatever it is, it's working. but definitely, I'd start with their team, as you mentioned, with Bertie. And I think Ashley Young, for me, would be the right choice, even if Cashy was fit, because he tends to stifle those sorts of wingers like Annan St Maximin and will stay back that bit more. Whereas Cashy, as great as he's been playing recently, would be more inclined to bomb on where he could do. Though, credit where credit's due, he's improving a hell of a lot under Unai Emery still, as are all the players. Alex Moreno, I think he's spot on. He's been a great acquisition for us since January and a very astute signing. You feel for Luca Dean in many
Yep.
ways. He hasn't done anything wrong really, though. I can see there being a bit of rotation there, especially if next season we do get into Europe. They'll both need to play a bit more because of the ages that they are. Ponsa and Mings have got to stay at centre back. They've been revelations under Emery. Diego Carlos probably going to have to wait a little bit longer before he starts to see minutes. He'll probably get his first chance when we're holding on to a 1-0 lead and we go for 6 in defence.
Yep.
Um, McGinn, McGinn's been sensational. I don't mean to get you hard over it, but he's been sensational since he's come back.
Already am.
Yeah, but don't imagine that. But he's been a proper captain, and it's probably the first time that you can really say, yeah, he's captain. As much as everybody felt that Tyrone Mings probably should have kept the armband, or that it was unfair that he got took off him. McGinn's really had the opportunity to step up and show just what he can do because of the belief the manager has in him. And he's putting in those captain performances. Dougie Luiz, wow, he's been quality for a number of weeks now. JJ, yeah, put him in for the energy, put Buendia in for the creativity and the tenacity that he's got defensively. Bertie, you hope, can spark something. And Ollie Watkins is undroppable at the moment.
Yep.
Bit daft, maybe taking his shirt off. That's the only criticism I can give of him recently to get that yellow card. But he's been sensational as well since January. Apart from that, there's nobody else really, I think, that gets a look into getting into the team. The only person you could maybe say is, do you put Dendonka in and move McGinn back out onto the wider roles? But with McGinn having a consistent run in the centre, it'd be a shame to move him from there. And you'd hope that if that was the team with just Bertie coming in for Bailey, that's enough for us to get something against Newcastle, and it's enough for us to get something against all of the teams that we've got to play over the rest of the season. I don't think we should fear anybody. I think teams should be worried about us.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of the streak we're on,
Yeah.
there's no reason to fear anybody and to go in and play our game. I mean, I'd say in terms of, I think the team largely picks itself mainly because of injuries. I'd say the one player who you could say the cliche victim of Villa's success is, you mentioned, Diego Carlos. I think if Villa were 11th, 12th, maybe a bit lower in the table, nowhere near Europe, I think he'd be playing to try and get him up to speed ahead of next season. But because we're still in the chase for a European place, great rhyme. The feeling is you don't want to break up Mings and Konza at the moment, especially when defensively we have improved a lot from where we were early in the season. And, momentum, as you mentioned, is a very important thing, and it takes a bit of time to get defensive communication back up to speed. So, yeah, I think as long as we are round about 6th, 7th and in a consistent run of form, yeah, Carlos, as you say, I think he just comes on when we need to shore it up at the back late on in the game. And in terms of playing Dendonka, yeah, no, not for me. I couldn't think of anything. I was going to say most
No.
fans would rather I played, but that's probably stretching it a bit far. But in terms of as an aside, when I was on the train to Villa Park on Saturday, I overheard a conversation with a couple of people. I'm assuming, well, they've been playing football, and one of them was talking about when I think it was like a visiting coach or a visiting scout came to watch the game, and he was regaling the reports that had been given about him after the game. And he said to his friend, I thought hold up play was the best aspect of my game, but this coach said I was crap at it. So that was quite the disappointing end for that particular visit for this guy. But it sounds similar to my playing
You
career, actually.
get in touch, and we'll send you a signed photo to cheer you up.
We won't say who of, but requests will be taken. But yes, I think largely this team picks itself at the moment. I mean, just we mentioned Carlos, but you run through the bench that was sitting at Villa Park on Saturday, just gone. Callum Chambers, then Donker, Carlos, Digne, Duran, Olsen, Revan, Sinisalo, and Traore. The assumption Traore starts, yeah, I don't really see too much movement otherwise going on. But funny enough, I quite like, if we had Aaron Ramsey at the club, seeing him knock another one in for Middlesbrough at the weekend, maybe you might think about getting him on the bench at least. But no, I think the team picks itself. But we mentioned the momentum. You mentioned Villa playing well. Mentioned you think we could get a result. Prediction time now. What results do you think we will be getting on Saturday?
So I'm going to give a positive prediction, but it's not going to be as positive as a Katie Price pregnancy test. It's going to be one of those where, when you look back at the end of the season, it's going to be a good, strong result. I think we'll get a 1-1 against Newcastle. I was going to go 2-2, but I don't see Newcastle conceding 2. And then I think about how well Martinez has been playing, and our defence has been playing. And I don't see them scoring too many either, touch wood, I mean, Callum Wilson will get their goal against us. No questions. And he'll dance in front of the whole end and rub it in. But we'll grab an equaliser. I think it'll be 1-1. I think it'll be a very end-to-end game in many parts, not just bang, 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 bang all the way through, sustained pressure from each teams. And come the end of the season, it could be a big result for us, especially with what you were saying off air before, with us having the hardest running and teams like Liverpool, who are aiming for that fourth place, having the easiest running.
Yep,
so
I mean,
1-1.
Yep, Liverpool do have the easiest running, so yep. Hashtag fourth.
Not as easy as Palace's, mate. I'm telling you.
Well, it looks like they could be absolutely anybody. Kind of, with Roy in charge. I mean, we definitely predicted that this would be a fantastic run that Palace would find themselves in. But in terms of, I'm trying to remember I believe it was 2003, 2004. I think it was round about April time, maybe round about the same time of the season, maybe in the same weekend, when Villa were in the European hunt and Newcastle came to Villa Park. And from recollection, I believe it was a game that finished a draw and Newcastle had a man sent off. I think like Andy O'Brien, I think from recollection, he got sent off early on and it finished 0-0. Villa came sixth that season, didn't we? Under David O'Leary. That season, it was one of those games where the hopes of European football was still going on. Sunday, the 18th of April, 2004. So not quite to the day, 19 years. That's a very roundabout way of saying I think it's going to be a draw. And in terms of, it doesn't happen very often on Talk of the Trinity podcast, but it happens today that I'm going to predict the same score as my co-host, Mr. Trinity, because I think it's going to be 1-1. I think it's going to be a good game. I mean, I think in terms of, I think there's going to be goals in the second half. Yeah, 1-1. I think that's not a bad result for Villa in terms of as you mentioned, their run of games coming in, they're pretty much all difficult. They're all in teams around us. I mean, I think in terms of momentum, we mentioned not a great time to play Newcastle as compared to a month ago. We've got Fulham coming up in just over a week, and it's a very good time to be playing Fulham in terms of their season appears to be curtailing off after their cup. I don't even know how you describe that cup quarter-final against Man United when they were absolutely cruising. And then, yeah, things happened in that last 30 minutes out of the game. And yeah, Brentford playing them next Saturday. Newcastle beat them last week. Hopefully, we catch them a bit cold as well. But Newcastle, certainly, we're not catching them cold. We're catching them fully hot, if that's a thing. And a draw. 1-1. But speaking of things that are always at the height of temperature, style, class, everything you need, our Twitter page at Talk Trinity, which will be keeping you up to date with what goes on Saturday afternoon at Villa Park and all the other Villa news reaction previews, because there is a lot coming up over the next month or so. A lot of games coming thick and fast for Villa. Big games, as Will mentioned, all potential European deciders in their own way. So we will be keeping you up to date with all of that. You can check out our YouTube channel, Talk of the Trinity, and our audio provider. I mean, we usually say you can, if you're on your commute or you're on your way home or, you're on the way to go and visit somebody, you can listen to it at home. You don't need to be going anywhere just to listen to our audio tones. It may, I don't know if it works if you say, Alexa, play Talk of the Trinity. Try, find it out. You're not going to be embarrassed if you do it in your own living room, as opposed to if you do it on the platform at Birmingham New Street. So we are on Amazon. It should work, but we're also on Apple, Spotify, Google. We're on FanHub. And before I pass you over to Mr. Trinity himself for his final thoughts, thank you very much for listening, watching. Really appreciate it. We will be back with you again soon. Enjoy the game Saturday. Up the Villa.
It's not arrogance. Baz has said the thank yous. I want to draw attention to the Lionesses the other night wearing no names on the back of their shirts, just numbers, highlighting dementia awareness. It's always important to give somebody with dementia or Alzheimer's a hug, tell them you love them, listen to Talk of the Trinity with them as well if you want to, but make sure that you spend time with them. And that might seem random to say, but the disease and the illness is random as well. We're getting back to all things Villa. Cheers, Tar. Thank you very much for listening. Let's hope that we don't end up with Easter egg on our face, that instead we rise like Jesus Christ himself, have that warm, sunny glow of 3 points behind us, and we hope that you sob on the time. He's Villa till he dies. He's certainly not Newcastle. It's the only one team he doesn't like. No. I'm Villa till I die. Cheers, Tar. Thank you very much. Up the Villa.
Bonus Baz. Will mentioned the England women's team. Good luck to the Villa women's team. Sunday afternoon, FA Cup semi-final down at Walsall. Get yourself down there if you can. So good luck to them. Now it is goodbye from us. Thanks for listening.